Hi, hello. A very good evening to all parents. All right. Tonight we are having this webinar on additional math to actually help all parents here to actually better understand and to better appreciate what your child who is actually taking additional math is going to be going through. Okay. So I'm sure over here there will be parents who may actually have a child who is this year Sec 3, right? So now it's the beginning of the year. So you'll be starting on this A math learning journey. Just started on that, right? And for those parents who has child is in Sec 4, so this seminar will hopefully provide you with a better understanding, right, in terms of what your child is going through, maybe some of the challenges that they may face, for this particular topic. So the whole idea here is to let all parents here have that better appreciation so that you can actually better able to support your child, as they actually grapple and manage this topic on additional mathematics. Right. So myself, I'm a teacher James. So together with me tonight is teacher Quilin. Okay. Yeah. So both of us here will be here to actually share and give you all the insight. And do feel free to actually ask us any question that you may have with regard to additional mathematics that your child is learning in school. All right. Okay. So with that, I'm going to actually just pull up my slide here. All right. Quilin, you can see my slide. Okay. Thanks.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So tonight's session focus on additional mathematics. Okay. And this is what we will be actually covering as an overview. Let me just share with everyone on what we'll be going through tonight. So we will actually be sharing with you in terms of the additional mathematics syllabus, so that everyone understand a bit, in terms of what it entails, the scope of coverage, and relating to the assessment, as well as the differences between mathematics and additional mathematics. Okay, so if your child is taking additional mathematics, surely your child will be taking mathematics because mathematics actually is a compulsory subject. Okay, what's the difference between the two? And also some trend, some interesting trend that we actually observe, that we will share, and also the common challenges that students tend to face when they actually deal with additional mathematics. Okay, so additional mathematics, not all students find it that easy. So there are students who actually struggle, right? So we'll share some of the common challenges and as well as some tips that we can actually share with everyone. And finally, also to then see how we can actually support our child, right? So at MyStretcher, we've been helping students for many, many years, on this topic. So we will be sharing with you a bit more in terms of how we can actually better and support our child on that. Now, let's start with in terms of an intro to this additional mathematics. Now, most of the school offer additional mathematics as a optional subject. That means it's not compulsory, all right? So most of them, they offer it. And there's a certain requirement by school to actually allow a student to take additional math. So for some of you parents here, if your child is actually starting Sec 3, you will be able to understand that, right? So they must have actually meet a certain minimum requirement in the Sec 2 result before they can actually allowed to do additional math. That's typically what school will do. But there are also some school, okay, who actually make additional math a compulsory subject. Okay, so it does have some variation across school. But regardless of all these things, what they're going through, so as they take additional math, they will all be learning the same thing under the SEAB requirement. Now, let's look at more whether you do or not. Actually, what is useful here to note is actually the importance of actually additional math. Okay. Now, additional math is important if, let's say, you are planning to do H2 mathematics when you go to JC. Okay. So it's important when you want to do H2 mathematics. Okay. Because a lot of things that you learn in additional mathematics will be actually the basic foundation that will support your learning when you do H2 mathematics in JC. Okay. So just to give everyone an idea, in JC, you can take mathematics at two levels, H1 or H2. Okay. H2 is the more demanding level. Okay, H1 is slightly less demanding. Okay, so that's how they differentiate by calling it H1 and H2. And of course, if for those who are thinking of going via the polytechnic route, okay, it's also a very popular route nowadays. Many students with very strong result are also opting to go to polytechnic. And for those who are going to polytechnic, you will find that those who are thinking of going for the STEM courses, then you will find that that's where your additional math will give you the advantage. Okay, so it will keep you in a good standing to actually take on some of the advanced learning that you'll be picking up from the course, from all those STEM courses. Okay, so that is a brief intro to this additional math. Now, having said that, let's from my slide over here, you can see that actually I have summarizers for everyone, just to make it easy for everyone to actually have a bird's eye view of what are the key topics that will be covered, by your child who is actually taking on additional math. Okay, so in the syllabus, we categorize them into three broad categories. Okay, so that's how MOE categorize them. So under each of the category, as you can see from my slide here, you will see that these are the various topics that they'll be learning under each one of them. Okay, so the broad one will be on algebra. Then your geometry and trigonometry is the next category of topic that they learn. And finally, calculus. Calculus. So this will be basically all your technique on differentiation as well as integration. All right. So this is the scope of the additional math. Now, let's understand a little bit more also in terms of not just the scope, but also in terms of the assessment. Okay, how they what they can expect, when they sit for the exam. So for the additional math paper, it will consist of two papers, right? Paper 1 and paper 2. Now, both paper are of equal weightage. Okay, so both are 50%. Total mark is 90, okay, for each paper. And they're expected to be able to do all the questions within 2 hours, 15 minutes. Okay, so that's the expectation. So for paper 1, these are typically some of the shorter questions. Okay, so it will ranges over the years. Okay, if you look at the past year 10-year series, you will see that actually typically it's about 12 to 14 questions. And the marks are also slightly shorter. The max is about maybe 10 marks per question. But typically that is the number of questions typically. And candidate don't have a choice. You have to answer all the questions, okay, in paper 1. Right? Now, same for paper 2. All questions need to be answered. But now in paper 2, the question will be longer. Okay. So for that matter, there will be slightly lesser question, range from maybe about 9 to about 11 question. Okay. And the question will actually carry more marks as well for each question. Okay. Up to maybe say about 12 marks per question. So this is a broad overview in terms of how the exam is being structured for the additional math, okay, that your child is will be going through. Okay, now the next part that I want to share with all is with regard to the differences between additional math and mathematics. Okay, now these two subjects that your child is actually taking in the school, there's a couple of differences from different aspects. So I'm going to go through each one of them. So for the case of additional math, okay, it is actually more in depth. Okay, so between math and additional math, actually there are some overlap in the topic. Okay, there'll be some topic that actually your child will have been learning them since Sec 1, Sec 2, and now Sec 3. Or for those who are in Sec 4, they will actually learn that. But you will find that there are some topic actually you'll find the same topic actually appear also in additional math. But in a slightly different context, it will go a bit more in depth. Okay, so there'll be some additional technique and that they'll be learning for the same topic. Okay, so what this also means is that a lot of times we will always tell our student that actually mathematics is the assumed knowledge for additional math. Okay, it's the assumed knowledge for additional math. Okay, meaning to say whatever foundation that they have actually built up over the years from Sec 1 to Sec 2 and Sec 3, whatever they learn in mathematics, actually a lot of them will actually support their learning for additional math. Okay, So in additional math, they are not going to actually revisit all those things that have been taught. Okay, so the teacher in school will be teaching them on the new technique, the more in-depth content for the topic that is being covered, and anything that is what they have learned previously will be assumed that they should have already be very familiar. Okay, so if a student is not strong in their mathematics, then that's where they will struggle, when they start to actually manage some of the new topic, some of the topic in additional math. So that is also precisely the reason why some schools, in fact, a number of schools, they make certain requirements for their Sec 2 result. Okay, the Sec 2 result must achieve a certain grade before they can actually be considered to take on additional math. Okay, and of course, the other thing that is different between math and additional math will be there are actually new topic, okay, that they'll be seeing for the first time when they take on additional math. So the topic, and it's a big topic that they will be seeing for the first time will be this topic on calculus. Okay, so just now we saw there are three broad category, right? So the category on calculus will be something that is only um, appear in additional math. So for students who do additional math, then they will be learning that. Okay, so that is actually one of the main difference between additional math as well as mathematics. Now, other than that, in terms of additional math, right, another dimension of the differences will be also in terms of their algebraic manipulation skill. Okay, now in secondary school, I believe most of everyone, parents will actually have appreciated if you have been working with your child over your secondary school since Sec 1 all the way. You will find that in secondary school, algebra is a extremely important topic. Okay, your mastery of algebra is very key because it will actually your algebraic skill will actually be needed in many topics that your child will be encountering. So how to manipulate the algebra and all the technique and so on will be needed, especially if your child is now doing additional math. Okay, your deeper algebraic manipulation skill will be required. And not only that, just now we saw that there are actually three strands, right? In the additional math, the three broad category of the topic. You'll find that this algebraic skill is required in all the three strands. I mean, all the topic under each of the three category, they will all have some form of algebra embedded in the topic. So therefore, it will actually affect almost every topic. Okay, so it's not just deeper skills needed, but actually it will actually broadly impact all the various topics that you'll be learning under the additional math. So unlike mathematics, okay, in mathematics, there are also three broad category, three broad strands. For those of you who actually have joined us in the previous session where we talk about mathematics, you will notice that actually I've shared the three strands, and one of the strands is your numbers, algebra and numbers. So the algebra, the biggest strand is the one that actually will have the algebraic manipulation skill required. The other two strands not so much. Okay, but unlike A math, all the three strands you will need that. Okay, and of course the other key differences between your additional math and your math is actually in terms of the mathematical reasoning skill. Okay, yeah. So the demand for additional math is higher. So there'll be some of the more challenging questions. Both A math and additional math both have got challenging questions. So in math, they will typically require you to explain the result or to show a certain result, right? To show question that require to explain and to show. Now in A math, you also have that kind of question. But on top of that, there'll be questions that they need you to prove mathematically. Okay, so there will be an additional set of questions that you're required to prove a set of mathematical expression or result and so on. So the mathematical reasoning skill is more demanding when you compare between A math and mathematics. Okay, now another differences between these two topic in a way is also the number of topic involved. Okay, so not sure whether you consider that as a good news or not. Okay, but in additional math, you have lesser topic compared to mathematics. Okay, so actually that is also kind of reasonable because for mathematics, actually students have altogether in total about 3.5 years to learn everything before they take their final year exam, right? The national exam. Okay, so in total, if they finish from Sec 1 to Sec 4, there will be a total of about 21 topics. And this is actually spread across the 3.5 years. Why I say 3.5 years is because when it comes to Sec 4, typically school will actually have completed the curriculum by the first semester. Right? I mean the first sem, that means the first half of the year, they will finish it. So the second half of the year is actually more on all the intensive revision. So effectively, actually, there's only about 3.5 years to learn all these topics. Okay, so all the 21 topics. But in the case of additional math, there's lesser topic. Okay, about half of it, 10 topic. But then this has to be covered in 1.5 years. Okay, because they started AMF only in Sec 3. So by the middle of Sec 4, the school will finish everything, all the syllabus. So effectively, it's only about 1.5 years. Okay, and they have to cover this 10 topic. Right. So that is another difference between AMF and your mathematics. Okay. And one more aspect that I want to share with all is in terms of the topic that is being tested in your paper 1 and paper 2. Okay. Now, for those of you who are very familiar with the mathematics paper, okay, you will find that actually there is some differences in terms of the topic that has been tested. So, for example, like in mathematics, the paper 2 typically, right, will have a question on algebra or your graph plotting or your this PRWC question, the real world context question that I shared in the previous seminar. This one will typically come out in paper 2. Okay. So not necessarily every topic will appear in paper 2, but these are the few that will always be appear in paper 2. But when it comes to AMF, if you do an AMF paper, you'll find that you have to study for all topic. Okay. So all topic can appear in paper 1 and it can similarly still appear in paper 2. Okay. So you really have to know all topic well. So you cannot like strategize and then try to, okay, maybe for paper 1, you focus on certain thing and then paper 2, you focus on, some other topic. No, you cannot. Okay. So AMF, you need to know everything. Okay. Because it can appear in either of the two paper. Okay. Okay, now, so on the same vein on this part of assessment, I also want to actually share in terms of some differences in terms of how the MF paper are being assessed as compared to the mathematics paper. Okay, now, in the assessment, the way SEAB actually set the exam, there will be a question of a different level of complexity and also demand. Okay, so we actually classify them as what we call AO1, AO2, and AO3. Okay, these three broad category. So question that fall under the AO1 type of question typically those that is a bit more routine, a bit more standard kind of question, whereby students, so long as you do your due diligence, you learn what you need to learn for each of the respective topic. So the basic technique, standard technique, you should know how to apply. And you should be able to handle this type of question adequately. Okay, so that's the AO1. Now, AO2 will be those questions that require you to be able to apply. That means not just master the concept well, master the technique well, but you must be able to know to apply them in a variety of contexts. Okay, so not just the very routine type. So sometimes the question will set in different contexts, but they want to test whether you still know how to apply what you have learned. Okay, although they change the context, but you must still be able to apply the concept and the technique. Okay, so that is the understanding that you need to have for this AO2. Okay, so when it comes to the AO3 type of question, this will be the more challenging one. Okay, so this will be a typical question that require you to not just able to apply the technique, concept, and calculate and get the answer. Now, many of the times you'll be required to be able to reason it mathematically, and also to communicate. Okay, communicate. So, for example, they may ask you to justify, ask you to explain, or ask you to prove. So, you must be able to show it mathematically and communicate, the result that is expected. Okay, so that will be your AO3 type of question. Okay, so you can see that on my slide here, actually, I have nicely summarizes this for everyone. So you can see that in the case of mathematics, you can see that for AO1, the weightage is 45%. Okay, about there, plus minus. And when it comes to AO2, it's about 40%, and the remaining 15% is your AO3 type of question. Okay, that's for the mathematics paper. But when it comes to the additional math, you will see that the AO1 routine kind of question has now a lesser weightage, okay, about 35%. Okay, so there's more question from AO2. Okay, so there will be more questions that require students to have that deeper mastery, right? That you don't just know the technique well, you master your technique and your concept well, but you must know how to apply. So no matter how they twist and turn the question, right? Try to make it confusing for you. But you must still be able to know how to apply the technique appropriately to address the question. So therefore, you got about 50% of the question will come from this AO2 type. Okay. And then the remaining question, the remaining 15% will come from the AO3. Okay. So this is some of the key differences, okay, that I would like to just to, let all parents here to better understand, what your child will be actually going through when they sit for the national exam, and, to help everyone to better able to support them. Okay. Okay. Now, just now we mentioned about some of the AO3 type question, right? The more demanding type. So, like in the case of the mathematics paper, this will be those are PRWC question. So, basically, what we're saying here is that in terms of both additional math and mathematics, right, there will be question that is require that means they will set the question based on application on this real world context. Okay, but just that the way they do it is a bit slightly different. So in the case for math, this is the PWC question which I shared quite extensively in my last seminar webinar on the mathematics. But I want to highlight over here is that in the case for additional math, right, the way it's being tested is actually more in terms of modeling. I mean, you need to interpret the scenario or the context given, and then you are supposed to model it mathematically. Okay, so there's no so-called PRWC, but the equivalent of that is what we call the modeling kind of question. Okay, so that is one differences between your additional math and your mathematics. And for this modeling question, typically it will actually involve a topic, like for example, your quadratic, your exponential and your logarithm, as well as your topic on trigonometry. Okay, so it actually can actually come from these few topics, right? For those modeling questions. Okay, I'm going to show you in my this slide here, just to give you a flavor in terms of the kind of question that is kind of demanding when you come to additional math. So this is some of those trends that I want to actually highlight that you can actually get observe. So if you actually take out the 10 series that your child have, and you start to flip through the pages over the years, you will notice that in the case of additional math, quite different from the mathematics paper, is that the question in mathematics paper, they tend to have a bit more scaffolding. Okay, so a question may have a certain number of marks, but they will try to break up into part A, part B, part C, for example, 1, 2, 3, and then maybe 2 marks, 3 marks, 2 marks, that kind. Those they will actually spread it out. So in a way, it's actually guided. So usually the earlier parts will support the derivation of your solution for the subsequent part. Okay, so there will be that kind of structure. But when you go through the additional math paper, you'll find that situation is a bit different. Okay, so there will be questions that may have that similar kind of mark that as you can see, maybe 7, 8, 9, or mark and so on. But you notice that the question have got little or in fact no scaffolding. Meaning to say they do not actually break them up too much and ask you to kind of guide you in terms of getting the answer. Okay, So they may have just one question. That's it. And total 7 marks or 9 marks. Okay. So no scaffolding at all. Okay. So even if have, maybe very minimal. Otherwise, don't have scaffolding. And then you're supposed to actually work through, use the appropriate technique that you have learned and then apply accordingly. So the working for additional math can be fairly long, okay, in secondary school additional math. Some of the working can be quite long, okay, and there's no scaffolding. So you really need to know your mastery of the subject and the topic very well in order for you to actually work through the solution, okay. So some of the intermediate solution and everything, you have to figure out yourself. So there will not be that kind of guidance being provided, okay. So that is one thing to observe in terms of additional mathematics. Okay, so over here I've given you some example over here, right? So like in some of the years over here that I see, I've shown you on this slide. Okay, so these are some of the questions to give a flavor to better appreciate, what we mean by that. Whereby there's no scaffolding. So that's one aspect. Now, the other key thing with regard to additional math as a trend that we see, right, is also this thing what we call relational understanding versus your instrumental understanding. Okay, so instrumental understanding here refer to the expectation that a student know the step, the technique very well, okay, based on the concept. So if you apply all this very efficiently, effectively, and very proficient in it, okay, then you actually have a master your that instrumental understanding well. Okay, so you can execute it very well. So if you have a question, you know very well each of the steps, and then you can actually write them and do them, fast and accurate. Okay, but when you come to relational understanding, so there'll be some question that is being set whereby the expectation here is your relational understanding. So this is where you need to connect the dots. Okay. So there will be question that is being set whereby you are supposed to make connection between concept. Okay. So between a cross concept, you need to make that connection to help you to better remember and to bridge to your learning. So as you learn certain topic, you will find that actually this what I'm learning here actually do require me some of my prior knowledge from another topic. Then you're supposed to be able to draw that link, okay, and to help to reinforce your understanding, okay. And in terms of question wise that they ask, they also this will be typically appear in those explain kind of question. Okay, that means the question will expect you to be able to not just know how to obtain the answer, but to be able to explain the result. Okay. Now I have some example here just to show everyone in terms of what this looks like. Okay. So like for example, in 2022, there's a question here. You can see the first one here. Instead of asking you to compute, right? So they provide you with all the necessary information, and instead of asking you to calculate, so they tell you Q is 7, and they ask you to explain why. Why is that so? So no, it's not just about determining why Q is determining Q is 7. Okay, calculate Q is 7, but to be able to explain. So in order to explain, over here, it's not about like English, the kind of comprehension you write down, in text form, long paragraph as to why. No, the expectation here is you must actually explain it mathematically. So a lot of time, even when they ask you to explain, you need to actually do some calculation to justify your answer and to justify your explanation, okay, or to show a certain result. So actually, although it's explained, but actually you need to actually calculate, do your necessary calculation, apply the technique well, correct, and then from there you use it to substantiate, your result through the working. Okay, so there are some examples here. So I just pull up two typical one, like the next one. You can also see, right? So they'll ask you, why C, explain why C is actually greater than or equal to 4. Okay, so you have a line that intersect a curve. So they give you the information, and then they ask you to explain why is that so. Okay, so you need to again explain through a mathematical justification. Okay, so this will actually require you relational understanding. Okay, so it's more than just instrumental. That means it's more than just knowing how to do your step and calculate correctly. That is not enough. Okay, you still need to be able to explain and substantiate. Okay, so this is the key thing to note when you're to let you better appreciate and understand this is what your child will be going through when they take additional math. Okay. Now, trend-wise, in my next few slides, I also want to share with you some of the trends that actually we observed over the years. I think this one, I think a lot of parent and student will be quite interested, right, to know across the different topics, which are the topic that, has been coming out, got higher weightage and so on, right? So actually we did a tabulation. So by looking at the past 5 years, from 2021, the recent 5 years, okay, up till last year. Okay, so you can see from here, on this slide here, actually the variation is actually not much. Actually, quite consistent. Okay, quite consistent. Okay, and it's all about 32 to 32, 33 plus minus 9% across the year. Okay, but of course within each of the topic, then you will see that there will be certain topic that may have slightly higher weightage over the years as compared to some. Okay, there are some topic they tend to have relatively a bit lighter in the weightage. So this is what we can see over the past 5 years. Okay, now whether the trend will hold true in the subsequent year, of course we can't guarantee, but this is offered here as a useful reference for everyone. All right, okay, and I'm going to show you the next few strands. And one thing that I want to highlight also is that the you see that all the three strands, right, actually the weightage is more or less quite equal. Okay, it's all about 33, 34, percent plus minus across all the three strands. So this also tells us that actually all the three strands, they are actually of almost equal importance. Okay, so you can't really try to strategize and try to maybe skip certain strand and then focus on some strand that you think you're stronger in. So to do an additional math, you really need to be good in everything under the scope of the exam. Okay, so you will see over here in the next strand on geometry and trigonometry is also over the year also quite consistent, right? Over 30%. And finally for calculus, it's also about that. So it's about 1/3, right? So the weightage. So across all the three strands. Okay. So this is actually some of the observation here that I thought would be helpful to share with everyone. And in terms of additional math, this is what I think is helpful for all to know. In the next segment here, we will then share with you a bit of some of the common struggle, that students tend to face. Okay, and we're going to share this with all parents so that you all can better appreciate that, and then hopefully it will help you in supporting your child as well. Okay, so with this, I'm going to hand this over to Teacher Quilin, so she will help to take us through on that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Teacher James. All right, let me share my screen first, then I'll get started. Okay. Right. Okay, yeah, right. Okay, so as what Teacher James has mentioned is that I'll be sharing this part, which is regarding the problems that are faced by students. So we will look at each of them in more details in the next several slides. So over here, you can see that the first problem that they face is usually because of their poor foundation when they actually learn algebra topics in Sec 1 and Sec 2, right? And then also another thing is, so how do they actually revise for additional mathematics in order to actually do well later on? And then another one is for modeling questions. So how to strategize and score better for those questions as well. And then another one is formulas. Okay, so even though there is a formula list that is provided for the students in the exams, but not all formulas are included in the formula list. So there will still be several formulas that they will need to memorize. So this one I'll talk about it in a short while as well. And then another two things over here, point 5, time management and careless mistakes. So these are very typical problems that students face as well. And lastly, is actually on the accuracy, because when answers are not written in the accurate form, there will be marks that will be deducted because of that. Okay, right. So let's go to the first one, which is on the foundation of the Sec 1 and Sec 2 topics. Okay, so is that it is actually very important to have a good foundation on those few topics that are in lower secondary, in order to actually to be able to do well later on, right? So these are some topics that we have identified and to share with you all, is that for example, the algebraic identities, right? And also quadratic equations and graphs. So they will need to actually be very familiar with what graphs are actually being drawn when given a certain quadratic equation. And then also another one is algebraic fractions and formulae. Okay, so when possible, because right now it's actually the school holidays are over and they have already started school. So my suggestion is that to actually to take up any pockets of time during the weekends, or maybe if there are upcoming public holidays, they ought to actually do some catch up and revise if their foundation in terms of the Sec 1, Sec 2 topics are not too good. So that is the time where they will really need to catch up. Okay, so the main the ones that I've mentioned, the 3 topics, to actually to revise these 3, and then also if they were previously already with MindStretcher, so they would have already gotten the previous the past year's worksheets where there's the homework booster. So as much as possible, they can actually use that to practice and to build up their their skills as well. Okay, right. And then the next thing is so how to revise on on the additional mathematics. So there are a few channels that you can actually let your child do the practices. So the first one is actually to do textbook review exercises. Those, because in textbooks you will notice that first of all, they will actually teach the concept, then followed by subsequently there will be some example questions, and then followed by maybe a certain 1-2 pager at least with a whole list of questions over there. So they can actually try and do those. Or and another channel is actually through our MindStretcher homework boosters. And if let's say after doing so, they still have some time to spend on doing additional ones, it would be good that they actually do the 10-year series questions as well. Okay. Then of course, if they have already completed their 10-year series, then I would suggest that they can actually practice them again, or practice the older ones. So although yes, it will be good to actually practice the years that are closer to the existing year, because the trend is more similar in that sense. But there's no harm actually doing the ones that are actually in the earlier years, because the questions are more or less the same. It's just that maybe for maybe 10 years ago, maybe the questions relating to what Teacher James actually mentioned about like those questions that are on explain. Maybe those questions will be slightly limited, but it is actually the common trend nowadays. Yeah. Okay. And then of course, there are also exam and textbook questions. So this is what it's more of like past year school exams. They can also use those as another channel of practicing as well. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then the next one is actually scoring strategies in modeling questions. So yeah, this is one thing that is actually a problem, because there are not too many modeling questions from 10-year series, in fact, because every year from the past years, there will only be like maybe 1-2 questions that will actually be in this manner. And the other sources that we can actually tap on will be things like the textbook or mind stretcher worksheets, where we actually also expose them to additional questions on that are actually related to modeling questions. Okay, and then strategy. These are some of the strategies that we can actually use where we talk about when we talk about projective functions. They need to actually know how to complete the square. Okay, and then like for example, for exponential logarithmic functions, then they will need to actually know how to do substitution for certain conditions to find unknowns, right? Because the question may actually come out in a very complex way, and then they will need to actually do some substitution to get the equation or the expression to be simpler in order to simplify it. Then after that, then substitute back the original unknown and so on, right? And then trigonometric functions also. This is that it will be very important that they need to know how to sketch the trigonometric graphs. Okay, like for example, the sine graph as compared to the cosine graph, there's a slight difference, and then how a tangent graph looks like and so on, right? Okay. And then the next one would be, this thing about the formula list. So as you can see here, yes, this is a bit small over, I would, at your end, I think you may also find that this is a bit small, but this is actually what is taken from the O-level exams question, the paper, where there's this formula list that will be attached at the very front. Okay, and you will see that there are only these few things that are covered in the formula list. For example, quadratic equation, where is to find your x using the quadratic formula. And then there's also the binomial expansion, the formula for binomial expansion, and also when we how do we actually find n choose r, and subsequently this part on trigonometry. These are only some of the trigonometry identities that they are given. And and also below it will be the formula for a triangle, finding a triangle like ABC. So how the formula of a triangle, half BC sine A, example, right? So so these are the formulas that you see on my left, on your left, I mean, is that you will see that things like sum and difference of cubes, partial fraction rules, laws of indices and logarithms, equation of circle, our formula for trigonometry, and also trigonometry in terms of like cosecant, secant, and cotangent, and also differentiation and integration rules. These are those that are not covered in the formula list, and they will need to know all these as well in order to be able to apply into the questions and to solve the questions. Okay, right. Then the next one is actually talking about time management. So it is always this question on, so how much time should the students be using to answer a particular question? Okay, we have this, take it as a ballpark figure where for every mark that is allocated to the question, we should allocate about 1.5 minutes for each mark. So for example, is that if it's a 10-minute question, 10-mark question, I mean, 10-mark question, it should be about 15 minutes that he should spend and not more than that, right? So that actually comes to my next part, which is on careless mistakes. So if the time is managed appropriately, then there will be actually enough time for them to also to check through their working and to spot any possible careless mistakes that they have made along the way, right? And also, it would be good that they actually compile the careless mistakes during practices. So is to actually to get them to remind them of what they ought to actually do next time and not to commit the same mistakes again. And then also another opportunity is through peer marking. That means if they have maybe their good buddy or good friend that they have in school, they can actually do something like this. So they can do the same practice together and then do peer marking. Or even in MindStretcher during their classes, they can also do that as well. I mean, on top of the lesson itself, when they are doing their homework booster, right? Okay. Okay. Then the last part, last one here is on the accuracy. Okay. So answers. What do we mean by answers in exact form? Okay, so usually, for example, this question here is actually saying to solve the equation of this x squared minus 9x plus 16 equals to 0 by completing the square. So in O-level mathematics, usually is that we will solve until the point where we get the value of x, but the value of x, we will usually round it off to 3 significant figures. Okay, but for O-level, for additional mathematics, usually we can just write it at this point, end off at this point where is this x equals to square root 10 plus 5, or x equals to negative square root 10 plus 5. So this is what we mean by exact form. Okay, so example here, yes, there is also another case where if let's say they were to be asked of this part, where they mention without using a calculator. If this is mentioned, then that is also another indication that they ought to actually answer in exact form, because they can't simply be able to find out what is the in decimal places, what are the decimals for the values. I mean what the value will consist of what decimal and so on, right? So this would actually be the answer that they should be showing, which is in exact form. X equals to root 10 plus 5 and or x equals to negative root 10 plus 5. Okay. Right. Another one is that, another thing is that as much as exact answers are encouraged, but there are also times where it is actually not really feasible or not really logical to actually to put in terms of exact form in that sense, right? For example, if let's say I have this question here, the final answer is actually x equals to e squared plus ln 3 minus sine pi over 4. So for this is like, it is still in a very raw form. So what we will need to do for this is that they will still need to actually use the calculator to get to the values, and then they will round it off to 3 significant figures. Okay, so for non-exact numerical answers, they are to actually correct to 3 significant figures or 1 decimal place in the case of angles in degrees. Okay, and unless a different level of accuracy is actually specified in the question, then they will have to answer it according to that. Okay, and if the question actually mentioned about a specific accuracy, like for example, leave your answer to 3 significant figures, if it's specifically mentioned in the question, then they will need to actually show the answer first with a higher degree of accuracy before they go to the final answer, which is in 3 significant figures. So for example, if the question asks for leave your answer in 3 significant figures, they should answer an intermediate answer, which is in 5 significant figures, then followed by the final answer, 3 significant figures. Okay, or in short form, it's 3SF and 5SF and 3SF. And then, of course, if it's in degrees, angles in degrees, then it will be 3 decimal places, then followed by the final answer, 1 decimal place. Okay, right. Okay, so another thing is like when they are showing their working. Okay, so for example here, when they do the factorization of their quadratic, solving their quadratic equation, unless they are using the quadratic formula, else if they are just doing the factorization method like using that multiplication, the cross multiplication method or the multiplication frame method, because depends on school. Some schools may be teaching either the multiplication frame or the cross multiplication method, right? So, and then they will actually get to the part where they will have the factorized form. They will need to actually show this factorized form, which is the x minus 1, bracket x minus 1, bracket x minus 3 equals to 0 first, before they get to the final answer, which is x equals to 1 or x equals to 3. Okay, because this step here is critical. They will need to show that, right? Because there are many a case where students tend to skip this step. Okay, right? And when told to find two unknown constants, it is usually involving solving two linear equations simultaneously. Okay, so this is usually the kind of questions that they will need to know how to solve it, right? And then also another thing is they need to know how to complete the square. So for example, if they are given a quadratic expression, which is in terms of in a general manner is ax squared plus bx plus c, they will need to actually know how to convert it to this other expression, which is a bracket x plus p close bracket square then plus q, right? Okay. And then another thing is that the students must be very careful of would be to ensure that they are in the correct mode for their calculators. Because when they are doing calculations, there are times where they will need to actually be calculating in terms of degrees, but there are also times where they are required to answer in radian. So they will need to actually change it to radian mode in order to do the correct calculations, right? This is actually for your for their trigonometry topic. Okay, and then also to know useful functions to check answers. So yeah, nowadays the calculators are able to actually they are able to actually calculate these things like quadratic equations and also even solving simultaneous linear equations already. But they will still need to show the working when it comes to the exams. But of course, having known this function in the calculator, they will actually be able to make use of it to just have a quick check in order to see whether have they actually gotten the correct answer, their final answer, whether is it actually correct based on what they have done, right? Okay, then the next thing is actually we will be talking about the Mind Stretches additional maths curriculum. So the objective is actually we intend to actually complete the syllabus before the school's end of year exams. So usually it's completed at least 2 weeks before the September holidays. And then of course, for those that are taking their O levels, then it will be before their prelims, okay, to complete the syllabus and then so that they are prepared for their prelims as well. Okay, and then this is actually to consolidate their learning. Like for example, in terms of you having revision papers, as every after every 2-3 topics, they will actually have a revision paper to consolidate their learning. And then also we will have excuse me, they will also have this mid-year checkpoint and the end of year checkpoint for Set 3s. Then for Set 4, of course, is the mid-year checkpoint and the prelims, right? To actually also to consolidate their learning, to see how well they have learned and then how well they have be able to actually apply to the exam kind of questions. And then also another thing is that during the November and December school holidays, about 2 chapters has already been taught during that time. So it's actually to get them to have a head start when they start school, right? Okay, and then another thing is that we also will expose them to questions within and beyond the syllabus. So example like non-routine questions that will be indicated by this asterisk sign or O-level simulated questions. So O-level simulated questions are very similar to what they may see in the 10-year series as well. Okay, and some non-routine questions is because is to try and get them to be exposed to some different sorts of complex questions. And there might be a case where during O levels, there will be that one particular question that is tweaked in such a way as well. So, but of course, the majority of the questions are actually quite standard based on trending. But there might also be a case where there will be that one or two where they actually will do some tweaking in that sense, right? Okay, and then align learning with stipulated mathematical processes and gradually cultivate them gradually cultivate them for the students, right? So for example, the AO3 kind of questions and the modeling questions will be within weekly curriculum as well. Okay, and key features for our curriculum is that we will usually have these few components, concept, which is to concept development, which is actually to teach them on a certain concept, introducing to a new concept. And then after that, there will be a practice paper for them to practice on the questions. And of course, there will be the homework booster in each week. So after the lesson, if possible, they can actually go back and do some more practice on their own, right? And to check on the eStudy Buddy video recordings to view the solutions. Okay, and then for revision papers, as I mentioned, it is typically after every 2 to 3 chapters. So this is also to consolidate their learning. And then there's the mid-year checkpoint, the end-of-year checkpoint. And also on top of that is that not just the mid-year and end-of-year checkpoint that they will actually be receiving the topic summary, but during the revision papers, most of the time during the revision papers, they may also be receiving a shorter version of the topic summary. That means it's a summary within that 2 to 3 topics, right? Yeah, because also we are also considering the fact that some students may actually join at different pockets of time in the year, so they may actually need to do some catch up as well. So that's why there will be this additional topic summary during the revision papers as well. And then of course, after the mid-year and end-of-year checkpoint, there will also be the error analysis that they will have to actually go through to analyze on what are their mistakes and how should they actually avoid committing those mistakes. Okay, and yeah, so actually I've more or less actually mentioned about it. So this is actually kind of an example of how it looks like in terms of the order of the worksheet. Okay, so is that you will have a concept development where there are concepts being taught and also work examples to show them how the questions are done. And then after that, followed by the practice paper where there'll be basic, intermediate, and advanced questions. Or some papers, they may actually show skill-based questions, and then also O-level simulated questions, right? So those are actually on par with this as mentioned here. So basic questions would be more like the skills-based question, and then the intermediate would be more like those O-level questions. And if there are challenging questions that is seen in the paper, those are actually considered the advanced practice questions, right? And then there will also be video solutions for the students to actually refer to. And homework booster, it is for self-practice. So there will also be video solutions for this part for the students to actually check through what they have actually done, right? So this is actually how it looks like in a typical weekly worksheet. Okay, and yeah. Okay, and then for the mid-year and end-of-year checkpoint, as mentioned, is that there will be a topic summary. The teachers will usually go through a semester recap and then consolidate, and it's also to consolidate their learning before the assessment, right? And after the assessment, they will actually be going through this to see that there are actually 6 types of errors in mathematics exams, and they will consolidate their learning after the assessment to to see where they have gone wrong, and then to how should they actually go about to improve on their on the necessary on the whichever topics that they are weaker in. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's all that I have. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so all parents, I noticed some parents actually came in a bit like halfway through. So welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight with this session. So we hope that through this session, we actually have given you a clearer idea, in terms of a better appreciation of what your child will be facing and what they'll be going through as they, juggle this topic on additional math. Now, so please feel free to let us know if you have any question that you have with regard to what we have shared tonight, as well as any other question that you may have. Okay. Now, what I think Teacher William has shared just now, I just want to add on to basically say that while there may be a student, who struggle a bit as they take on additional math. We have many cases whereby actually parents or students come to us when they are in beginning of Sec 4. Okay, because in Sec 3, they found that actually they really struggle a bit and their result is not very ideal. Okay, so therefore they come to us in Sec 4. And what actually we have done is that, there are many cases whereby success cases, okay, whereby students who actually join us in Sec 4, okay, there's still time for them to be able to catch up. Okay, so the tried and tested method of how our material are carefully designed, in a way, we actually has managed to help. So the good news is, don't worry if your child is find it tough going, when it comes to A math. But the good news is, actually, it can be addressed. Okay, so through proper guidance and through a structured way of learning, actually, it's possible for them to actually turn around things. Okay, things that they struggle, things that they find difficult, actually, through proper guidance, actually, it's possible that they will be able to actually see through the difficulty that they have encountered for each of the topic, and then they will start to see that actually the topic become more manageable as they manage to grab hold of master well certain key techniques that they need for the various topic. Okay, so that's possible. Okay, and there are many students who have actually turned that around from a result that is really quite below par to very good result. All right. So yeah, please feel free to let us know if there's any question that anyone have with regard to AMAth, or let's say your child may be facing with that I'd like to actually clarify. Yeah, do let us know. Okay, we're more than happy to actually address and to support all parents here. Yeah, feel free to dash that onto the chat. Okay, if there's anything that you have on your mind, we're happy to address that. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me see. Let me just double check the chat group. All right. Okay. If let's say there's no much question that you have for now, I think it's okay. So I will talk to you back for this spending this hour with us over this evening, Friday night. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining us. But if you do think of a question that you know later on, yeah, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay. So we'll be more than happy to work together with you to support your child in this journey of mastering additional math, so that they can eventually excel when they come to the time that they are to sit for the national exam. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Okay, thank you for taking the time to join us. Okay, thank you.